It's in the moments of deepest betrayal that we discover what we're truly made of. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. Olivia stood in the doorway of the penthouse she once called home, the key still warm in her hand. Nothing had changed. And yet, everything had. The scent of sandalwood lingered in the air, mingling with a faint trace of Vanessa's perfume. Something expensive and venomous. It clung to the curtains, the couch, the skin of the man who now stood across the room, expression unreadable. "Noah," Olivia said, her voice trembling but clear. "Tell me it's not true." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Vanessa appeared from the hallway, wearing Olivia's favorite silk robe, the one Noah had gifted her last Christmas. She looked every inch the mistress of the house, confident, smirking. "This is a private moment," Olivia snapped, rage flaring. "Correction," Vanessa said smoothly. "It's a transitional one. They say a woman scorned is dangerous, but that's not quite true. A woman scorned is furious, but a woman betrayed, left bleeding in the rain, carrying a child inside her, discarded by the very man who once vowed to protect her, that woman becomes something else entirely. She becomes inevitable. This is what happens when you mistake her gentleness for weakness, when you confuse devotion with desperation, when you think breaking someone means they'll stay broken. Some rise from ruin, others become the ruin." The sun dipped low over Los Angeles, casting a warm blend of amber and crimson across the skyline, as Olivia Tran adjusted the final details of what she believed would be the most unforgettable dinner of her life. The penthouse, perched 50 floors above the chaotic streets of downtown LA, was a monument to success. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased a panoramic view of the hills, while Italian marble floors shimmered in the glow of dozens of perfectly positioned candles. Olivia's fingers trembled as she nestled the final red rose into the vase. At 28, and 7 months pregnant with the twin boys she had only just discovered, she glowed with that radiant serenity that only expectant mothers carried. Her emerald green silk maternity gown, chosen especially for this night, hugged her gently and highlighted the grace of her Vietnamese-American heritage. Tonight, she would tell Noah. They weren't just having one baby, they were having 2 sons. The $50 million penthouse had been their sanctuary for the past 3 years of marriage. Every sculpture, every painting, every intentional detail told a story of love. At least that's what Olivia believed. Noah Carter, now 35, was a man whose presence demanded attention the second he entered a room. The tech billionaire behind Carter Quantum had built his empire from scratch, turning a niche software startup into a $12 billion global juggernaut. Olivia had first met him when she became his personal assistant straight out of Stanford's MBA program, driven, idealistic, and ready to leave her mark on the world. Their love felt like destiny. The ambitious assistant swept up by the commanding CEO. Noah had pursued her obsessively, lavishing her with attention, whisking her off to Paris on weekend getaways, proposing with a 10-carat diamond ring atop the Griffith Observatory. When they married in a glamorous cliffside ceremony in Malibu, the media dubbed it the wedding of the decade. But Olivia was about to learn the truth. Fairy tales don't always have happy endings. As she lit the final candle, her gaze shifted to Noah's phone, carelessly left on the marble counter in his rush to attend yet another emergency meeting. The screen lit up with a message from a contact, labeled only as V. "My love, I booked the presidential suite at the Ritz-Carlton. I'm pregnant. Tonight, we celebrate the family we were always meant to be. Let's celebrate the family we're finally going to have together." The word struck Olivia like a physical blow. Her hand trembled as she unlocked the phone. Noah had never changed the passcode from their anniversary. What once felt like a sweet gesture now landed like a cruel joke. Message after message unfolded before her eyes, each one unraveling a sordid affair that had been happening for the last 8 months. The man she loved, the father of the twins growing inside her, had been living a lie. The messages painted a revolting picture. Vanessa Lane, a 26-year-old supermodel and wannabe actress, had been meticulously luring Noah in. Her profile photo showed a striking blonde with icy blue eyes and a calculated smile that promised everything but hid nothing of the manipulation beneath. But it wasn't just the flirtation that shattered Olivia's heart. It was the earlier texts. "Noah, I'll file for divorce right after the twins are born. Can't risk a scandal before the IPO. Vanessa, promise me those kids won't inherit a cent. I don't want them in our way. Don't worry. Olivia and her accidents were never part of the plan. You and our baby? That's the only future I want. Olivia collapsed into the nearest chair, her hands instinctively guarding her swollen belly. The twins stirred violently, as if sensing her anguish. Her pulse pounded, her vision blurred. Across the room, the custom cake she had ordered mocked her silently. White chocolate frosting with "Welcome our twin boys" piped in soft blue icing. A chime from the elevator made her lift her head. Noah stepped in, his 6-foot frame commanding in a sharply tailored Armani suit. His dark hair was slightly tousled. Only now did Olivia see the signs she'd ignored. The faint lipstick on his collar, a perfume she didn't wear clinging to his jacket, and, most of all, the absence of love in his eyes. "You left your phone," Olivia said quietly, extending the device toward him. Noah froze, his face draining of color as he caught sight of the messages still open on the screen. For a long moment, silence filled the room like fog. Only the distant hum of downtown traffic bled through the penthouse windows. "How long have you known?" he asked, voice flat, none of the warmth that once made her feel adored. Olivia swallowed hard, steadying her breath. "About 8 minutes," she replied, surprised by the calm in her voice. Olivia whispered, surprised by how steady her voice remained. "Is it true? Are you really going to leave us for her?" Noah loosened his tie, a gesture she once found endearing. Now, it looked more like a predator preparing for the kill. "Olivia," he said, his tone devoid of warmth, "you have to understand. What Vanessa and I have, it's real. What we had was convenient." Convenient. The word hit like a punch to the chest. 3 years of marriage, sleepless nights holding him through business meltdowns, celebrating every deal, every milestone, every sacrifice she made for their shared life, reduced to convenience? "And your children?" Olivia asked, resting a hand on her belly. "Are they convenient too?" "They weren't planned," Noah said flatly. "Vanessa is carrying my son, my heir. Your pregnancy was an accident." Before Olivia could reply, the elevator chimed again. Vanessa Lane stepped out as if onto a runway, regal, predatory. Her platinum waves framed a perfectly contoured face, and her designer maternity gown, likely worth more than most people's salaries, hugged her belly like a crown jewel. She didn't look at Olivia. "Not right away." "Noah, darling," Vanessa purred, her tone silk and poison. "I got tired of waiting." Then she saw Olivia. Her gaze dragged over Olivia's body like she was an outdated piece of furniture, disposable. "Oh, the obstacle is still here." "Vanessa," Noah said with a flicker of irritation. "This is my wife, Olivia." "Soon-to-be ex-wife," Vanessa corrected, her laugh sharp and hollow like shattered crystal. "Though, Noah, you never told me she was so plain." Olivia rose slowly, dignity in every inch despite her pregnant frame. "This is my home," she said, voice firm. "You need to leave." Vanessa's laugh turned shrill. "Your home, sweetie, all of this will be mine soon. The penthouse, the cars, the company. You're just a placeholder who stayed too long." Noah's voice sliced through the tension. "Pack your things. You're leaving tonight." The words landed like a death sentence. Olivia stared at the man she once adored, searching for even a flicker of the person who had promised to protect her, cherish her. There was nothing left. Only calculation. "Noah, please." Her voice cracked. "I'm carrying your children. Doesn't that mean anything?" "It means you're an inconvenience that needs to be handled," he said coldly. "Vanessa is having my real heir. Your situation? Just a complication." Vanessa stepped closer, her presence suffocating the room. It's in the moments of deepest betrayal that we discover what we're truly made of. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. Olivia stood in the doorway of the penthouse she once called home, the key still warm in her hand. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. The scent of sandalwood lingered in the air, mingling with a faint trace of Vanessa's perfume. Something expensive and venomous. It clung to the curtains, the couch, the skin of the man who now stood across the room, expression unreadable. "Noah," Olivia said, her voice trembling but clear. "Tell me it's not true." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Vanessa appeared from the hallway, wearing Olivia's favorite silk robe, the one Noah had gifted her last Christmas. She looked every inch the mistress of the house, confident, smirking. "This is a private moment," Olivia snapped, rage flaring. "Correction," Vanessa said smoothly. "It's a transitional one. They say a woman scorned is dangerous, but that's not quite true. A woman scorned is furious, but a woman betrayed, left bleeding in the rain, carrying a child inside her, discarded by the very man who once vowed to protect her, that woman becomes something else entirely. She becomes inevitable. This is what happens when you mistake her gentleness for weakness, when you confuse devotion with desperation, when you think breaking someone means they'll stay broken. Some rise from ruin, others become the ruin. The sun dipped low over Los Angeles, casting a warm blend of amber and crimson across the skyline, as Olivia Tran adjusted the final details of what she believed would be the most unforgettable dinner of her life. The penthouse, perched 50 floors above the chaotic streets of downtown LA, was a monument to success. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased a panoramic view of the hills, while Italian marble floors shimmered in the glow of dozens of perfectly positioned candles. Olivia's fingers trembled as she nestled the final red rose into the vase. At 28 and 7 months pregnant with the twin boys she had only just discovered, she glowed with that radiant serenity that only expectant mothers carried. Her emerald green silk maternity gown, chosen especially for this night, hugged her gently and highlighted the grace of her Vietnamese-American heritage. Tonight, she would tell Noah. They weren't just having one baby, they were having 2 sons. The $50 million penthouse had been their sanctuary for the past 3 years of marriage. Every sculpture, every painting, every intentional detail told a story of love. At least that's what Olivia believed. Noah Carter, now 35, was a man whose presence demanded attention the second he entered a room. The tech billionaire behind Carter Quantum had built his empire from scratch, turning a niche software startup into a $12 billion global juggernaut. Olivia had first met him when she became his personal assistant straight out of Stanford's MBA program, driven, idealistic, and ready to leave her mark on the world. Their love felt like destiny. The ambitious assistant swept up by the commanding CEO. Noah had pursued her obsessively, lavishing her with attention, whisking her off to Paris on weekend getaways, proposing with a 10-carat diamond ring atop the Griffith Observatory. When they married in a glamorous cliffside ceremony in Malibu, the media dubbed it the wedding of the decade. But Olivia was about to learn the truth. Fairy tales don't always have happy endings. As she lit the final candle, her gaze shifted to Noah's phone, carelessly left on the marble counter in his rush to attend yet another emergency meeting. The screen lit up with a message from a contact, labeled only as V. My love, I booked the presidential suite at the Ritz-Carlton. I'm pregnant. Tonight, we celebrate the family we were always meant to be. Let's celebrate the family we're finally going to have together. The words struck Olivia like a physical blow. Her hand trembled as she unlocked the phone. Noah had never changed the passcode from their anniversary. What once felt like a sweet gesture now landed like a cruel joke. Message after message unfolded before her eyes, each one unraveling a sordid affair that had been happening for the last 8 months. The man she loved, the father of the twins growing inside her, had been living a lie. The messages painted a revolting picture. Vanessa Lane, a 26-year-old supermodel and wannabe actress, had been meticulously luring Noah in. Her profile photo showed a striking blonde with icy blue eyes and a calculated smile that promised everything but hid nothing of the manipulation beneath. But it wasn't just the flirtation that shattered Olivia's heart. It was the earlier texts. Noah, I'll file for divorce right after the twins are born. Can't risk a scandal before the IPO. Vanessa, promise me those kids won't inherit a cent. I don't want them in our way. Don't worry. Olivia and her accidents were never part of the plan. You and our baby? That's the only future I want. Olivia collapsed into the nearest chair, her hands instinctively guarding her swollen belly. The twins stirred violently, as if sensing her anguish. Her pulse pounded, her vision blurred. Across the room, the custom cake she had ordered mocked her silently. White chocolate frosting with "Welcome our twin boys" piped in soft blue icing. A chime from the elevator made her lift her head. Noah stepped in, his 6-foot frame commanding in a sharply tailored Armani suit. His dark hair was slightly tousled. Only now did Olivia see the signs she'd ignored. The faint lipstick on his collar, a perfume she didn't wear clinging to his jacket, and, most of all, the absence of love in his eyes. You left your phone, Olivia said quietly, extending the device toward him. Noah froze, his face draining of color as he caught sight of the messages still open on the screen. For a long moment, silence filled the room like fog. Only the distant hum of downtown traffic bled through the penthouse windows. "How long have you known?" he asked, voice flat, none of the warmth that once made her feel adored. Olivia swallowed hard, steadying her breath. "About 8 minutes," she replied, surprised by the calm in her voice. Olivia whispered, surprised by how steady her voice remained. "Is it true? Are you really going to leave us for her?" Noah loosened his tie, a gesture she once found endearing. Now, it looked more like a predator preparing for the kill. "Olivia," he said, his tone devoid of warmth, "you have to understand. What Vanessa and I have, it's real. What we had was convenient." Convenient. The word hit like a punch to the chest. 3 years of marriage, sleepless nights holding him through business meltdowns, celebrating every deal, every milestone, every sacrifice she made for their shared life, reduced to convenience? "And your children?" Olivia asked, resting a hand on her belly. "Are they convenient too?" "They weren't planned," Noah said flatly. "Vanessa is carrying my son, my heir. Your pregnancy was an accident." Before Olivia could reply, the elevator chimed again. Vanessa Lane stepped out as if onto a runway, regal, predatory. Her platinum waves framed a perfectly contoured face, and her designer maternity gown, likely worth more than most people's salaries, hugged her belly like a crown jewel. She didn't look at Olivia. Not right away. "Noah, darling," Vanessa purred, her tone silk and poison. "I got tired of waiting." Then she saw Olivia. Her gaze dragged over Olivia's body like she was an outdated piece of furniture, disposable. "Oh, the obstacle is still here." "Vanessa," Noah said with a flicker of irritation. "This is my wife, Olivia." "Soon-to-be ex-wife," Vanessa corrected, her laugh sharp and hollow like shattered crystal. "Though, Noah, you never told me she was so plain." Olivia rose slowly, dignity in every inch despite her pregnant frame. "This is my home," she said, voice firm. "You need to leave." Vanessa's laugh turned shrill. "Your home, sweetie, all of this will be mine soon. The penthouse, the cars, the company. You're just a placeholder who stayed too long." Noah's voice sliced through the tension. "Pack your things. You're leaving tonight." The words landed like a death sentence. Olivia stared at the man she once adored, searching for even a flicker of the person who had promised to protect her, cherish her. There was nothing left. Only calculation. "Noah, please." Her voice cracked. "I'm carrying your children. Doesn't that mean anything?" "It means you're an inconvenience that needs to be handled," he said coldly. "Vanessa is having my real heir. Your situation? Just a complication." Vanessa stepped closer, her presence suffocating the room. Her presence was like a toxic cloud. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," Vanessa said, voice like silk laced with poison. "Noah has made his choice. Accept it, with whatever dignity you've got left." "I won't leave," Olivia replied, standing taller, chin lifted. "This is my home. This is where our children should be born." That's when Noah made the call that would change everything. His fingers moved across his phone with cold precision. "Marcus, I need you and Tony at the penthouse. Now, there's a situation." 20 minutes later, the elevator dinged. 2 large men in black suits stepped out, Marcus and Tony. Olivia had seen them before at company galas and launch events, always hovering in the background. Discreet, silent, professional. She never thought they'd be summoned to remove her. "Gentlemen," Noah said, his tone cold, like he was giving instructions in a boardroom, "please escort Mrs. Carter from the premises. Make sure she understands. She's no longer welcome here." "Noah, no," Olivia gasped, instinctively shielding her belly. "You can't do this." "Oh, but he can," Vanessa interrupted smoothly, stepping forward with a vicious little smile. "And he is." She gave a slight nod toward the 2 men. "Boys, help Mrs. Carter adjust to her new reality." What followed would haunt Olivia for the rest of her life. Marcus grabbed her arm roughly, fingers bruising her skin. Tony moved to the other side, boxing her in. Tears welled in her eyes, not just from the pain but from the crushing disbelief. The man she had once trusted with her heart, her body, her future, was now watching her be dragged away like an intruder, a stranger. Every heartbeat echoed with betrayal. "No, please," Olivia begged, struggling against their iron grips. "I'm 7 months pregnant. You can't." "We can do whatever Mr. Carter pays us to do," Marcus said softly, tightening his hold. Her breath hitched. A cold shiver ran down her spine as she realized this wasn't a nightmare. It was her new reality. The twins inside her seemed to sense it too, kicking frantically, almost in protest. The elevator ride down all 50 floors felt like a descent into hell. Olivia's heart pounded, panic crashing through her system like a tidal wave. The babies kicked violently, stirred by her distress. When the doors opened to the basement garage, her dread deepened. The alley behind the building was a far cry from the glittering world above. Dented trash cans lined the narrow passage. The stench of garbage mixed with diesel fumes from nearby delivery trucks. Streetlights cast long, eerie shadows, and the city's hum felt distant, almost muted. "This is where you belong now," Vanessa's voice echoed off the damp brick walls as she followed them down. She had changed into a long designer coat, probably worth more than Olivia's car. Her heels clicked on the wet pavement, sharp, deliberate, cruel. Marcus gave Olivia a hard shove. She stumbled. Her pregnant belly threw off her balance and she hit the ground hard. Concrete scraped her knees, tore at her palms. The pain shot through her, sharp and hot. Inside her, the babies thrashed. "Please," Olivia whispered, blood trickling from a cut above her eyebrow where her head had struck the pavement. "I'm pregnant, my babies." "Your mistakes," Vanessa corrected coldly, nodding toward Tony. "Make sure she understands. This is permanent." The kick to Olivia's ribs came out of nowhere. Her scream ricocheted off the brick walls of the alley as a searing wave of pain ripped through her side. She curled into herself, desperate to shield her unborn twins. But Tony's boot slammed into her shoulder, then her lower back. Terror mixed with fury. She wasn't just being beaten, she was being erased, discarded like trash, and no one was coming to stop it. The thought of losing her babies, after everything, unleashed a primal fear so intense it clawed at her throat. "Stop," Olivia sobbed, voice raw. "The babies, please." But her cries were swallowed by the shadows. Another brutal kick, this time to her side, drew a fresh wave of agony, white-hot and paralyzing. Blood pooled beneath her head, mixing with the fabric of her once beautiful emerald maternity gown. The silk she had picked for a celebration now hung in shredded ribbons, stained with dirt and blood. She could taste iron in her mouth. Her ears rang, her vision blurred at the edges. But through it all, she held one thought like a lifeline. "They're still moving. They're still with me. I have to stay awake. I have to survive this." Through the haze of pain, Olivia could just make out Noah's silhouette at the edge of the alley, illuminated by a flickering street lamp. He stood there watching, expressionless. And then, he turned. He walked away. That moment, the moment he chose to leave, cut deeper than any kick. Deeper than the bruises or blood. It was the final blow. The death of hope. "Remember this," Vanessa said softly, kneeling beside Olivia's crumpled body, her breath like frost against Olivia's skin. "Remember what happens when you cling to something that was never yours." And then they were gone. The sound of retreating heels and heavy footsteps faded, replaced by the distant drone of traffic and the soft drip of water from a rusted gutter. Olivia lay still, broken on the cold pavement. Time lost all meaning. Minutes blurred into hours. Her body throbbed with every breath, pain radiating from her ribs, her shoulder, her skull. Blood had dried in streaks down her face. Her hands, raw and cut, still cradled her belly. The twins were still moving, still fighting. Their movement was the only thing anchoring her to this world. Every kick was a protest, a promise that they hadn't given up, and neither could she. "I'm sorry," she whispered through cracked lips, her palm trembling gently over her stomach. "Mommy's so sorry, but I promise you, I'll protect you. I'll make them pay for this." As the first light of dawn crept over the Los Angeles skyline, Giuseppe Torres, a 70-year-old sanitation worker, found her during his early rounds. His calloused hands shook as he dialed 911. He stayed with her until paramedics arrived, his weathered voice whispering, "Hold on, Misha. Help is coming." At Mount Sinai Hospital, Dr. Sarah Williams later called it nothing short of a miracle. "Mrs. Carter, your boys are fighters. Despite everything, they're stable, but you need complete bed rest. What happened to you?" Olivia turned her face away from the doctor's concerned gaze. The television droned quietly in her hospital room, but Olivia heard every word. Tech billionaire Noah Carter announced his engagement to supermodel Vanessa Lane last night. At an exclusive charity gala, the news anchor declared cheerfully. The couple, who are expecting their first child together, plan to marry next month in what's being dubbed the wedding of the century. Olivia's hands curled into fists as she stared at the screen. There they were, Noah and Vanessa, smiling for cameras, glowing with smug happiness while she lay broken in a hospital bed, bruised and stitched together, barely able to breathe. But something else stirred beneath the grief and humiliation. Not just rage, resolve. She reached for her old phone, the only possession that hadn't been taken from her, and scrolled through her contacts. Her fingers paused at a name she hadn't spoken to in years. David Park. A former classmate from Stanford, now a venture capitalist in Shanghai. David. She whispered when he picked up. It's Olivia. I need your help. I'm ready to do whatever it takes to make them pay. What followed would set off a chain reaction powerful enough to shake the billionaire world from LA to Asia. And when Olivia ended the call, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the black screen. The woman staring back wasn't the same naive wife who once believed love would protect her. She was someone else now, someone born in betrayal, molded by pain. Noah Carter, she whispered to the silence. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. The sterile white walls of Mount Sinai gave way to peel-in plaster and mildew-stained ceilings. Her new home, a cramped studio apartment in East LA, right above a Chinese takeout joint where grease and soy sauce seeped through the floorboards, and the sound of traffic was constant. She sat on the edge of a sagging mattress that smelled faintly of damp carpet and despair, her hands resting on her heavy belly. The twins were due in 6 weeks. She had exactly $347 to her name. Noah's lawyers had frozen every account, filed claims that she had abandoned their marriage and left her with nothing. The irony was cruel. The woman who once wore custom gowns now browsed clearance racks at second-hand shops. The one who dined at five-star restaurants now lived on instant noodles and grocery store samples. But Olivia Carter didn't survive that alley just to surrender. Her lifeline came in the form of Café Luna, a tiny coffee shop tucked into a corner of Echo Park. Mrs. Rodriguez, the owner, gave her evening shifts and cash under the table, just enough to keep going. The hours were brutal. Her ankles swelled, her back screamed. Her hands, once manicured and soft, were now raw from scrubbing counters and rinsing cups. Still, she showed up. Mija, Mrs. Rodriguez would say gently, watching Olivia struggle through another shift. You don't belong here. I can see it in your eyes. You're meant for bigger things. Every night, after her swollen feet throbbed and her aching back screamed in protest, Olivia returned to her tiny room above the takeout shop and powered on her old laptop. It had once been a gift from Noah during their golden days. Now, it was her weapon. While her body healed, her mind planned. The call to David Park had been the first step in what would soon become one of the most calculated comebacks in business history. David arrived in Los Angeles 3 days later. When he stepped into Olivia's rundown studio and saw her condition, a storm passed over his face. Shock, fury, and then fierce determination. David Park, now 34, was no longer the idealistic Stanford MBA student she once studied case files with. He had become a polished, relentless venture capitalist, worth over $500 million. His firm, Pacific Ventures, had offices in Shanghai, Singapore, and London. Olivia, my God. David whispered, taking in the stained ceiling, the sagging bed, the sight of her fragile frame. How could Noah do this to you? David had always felt something for Olivia, quietly, respectfully. He never acted on it while she was married. But now, seeing her shattered but not defeated, those instincts rose with a vengeance. I don't want your pity, David, Olivia said, voice steady despite the glint of tears in her eyes. I want your partnership. I want to build something that will make Noah Carter look like a joke. In the days that followed, while Olivia worked her shifts at Café Luna, David quietly investigated everything, and what he uncovered made his blood boil. Noah hadn't just abandoned Olivia. He had wiped her out. Her credit was wrecked. Her access to every joint account had been severed. His attorneys had painted her as unstable, claiming she'd run off with another man while pregnant, sabotaging the image of a loyal CEO. The bastard covered his tracks well, David said one night during a late strategy session in Olivia's apartment, the space cluttered with financial printouts and half-empty takeout boxes. But I found something interesting. Stone Tech is in serious trouble. Olivia looked up, her eyes sharp. What kind of trouble? They've lost 3 major government contracts in the last 6 months. Their AI division is bleeding cash, and there are whispers about a federal investigation into their data handling practices. He slid a folder across the coffee table. Noah's been using massive debt to fund his lifestyle. Private jets, penthouses, the works. And now, it's starting to collapse. A slow smile crept across Olivia's face. The first real smile since the night she was left in that alley. How long do you think he's got at this burn rate? Olivia asked, scanning the charts David had compiled. David didn't hesitate. Maybe 18 months. After that, he'll either need outside investment or go bankrupt. Then we've got 18 months to prepare, she said, her voice steely. David's proposal was as strategic as it was generous. Olivia would relocate to Singapore, where Pacific Ventures had a rapidly growing branch. She could work remotely while finishing her pregnancy and then come on board full-time after the twins were born. More than just a job, Singapore offered the perfect battleground for their long-term plan. What exactly are we building, Olivia? David asked one evening as they finalized logistics. An empire, she replied without missing a beat. One that will make Noah Carter's little tech company look like a lemonade stand. The flight to Singapore was Olivia's first real taste of her new life. David had booked her in first class, a gesture that left her quietly overwhelmed after months of scraping by. As the plane ascended from LAX, Olivia pressed a hand to the window and whispered to the glowing skyline below. I'll be back, and when I return, you won't even recognize me. Singapore welcomed her like a clean slate. The gleaming skyline, the flawless infrastructure, the buzzing multicultural atmosphere. It radiated potential. David had arranged for her to stay in a high-rise service apartment overlooking Marina Bay, with views of the iconic infinity pool and the pulse of the financial district below. For the first time in months, Olivia felt safe. During those final weeks of pregnancy, she immersed herself in research and strategy. She dissected StoneTech's operations like a military tactician. She spotted every flaw, every blind spot, every opportunity Noah had missed or buried. Then came the discovery that changed everything. While reviewing StoneTech's patent filings, Olivia uncovered something explosive, evidence of systematic intellectual property theft. Noah's company had been stealing innovations from small startups, then burying them under lawsuits those companies couldn't afford to fight. This is it, Olivia told David during a late-night video call, her voice vibrating with urgency. This is how we destroy him. But before war came life. Ethan and Evan Carter were born on a rainy Tuesday morning at Mount Elizabeth Hospital, 2 perfect, healthy boys who arrived with fierce cries and powerful kicks, as if to say, "We're here. We're strong." Tears streamed down Olivia's cheeks as she held them for the first time. "Hello, my warriors," she whispered, kissing their foreheads. "Mommy's gonna build you an empire." David waited outside the delivery room, pacing like a nervous father. When the nurses finally let him in, he paused at the sight of Olivia and the twins. His eyes misted instantly. "They're beautiful," he said softly. "Perfect." "They're going to change the world," Olivia replied. And something in her voice made David believe it, completely. The months that followed were a whirlwind of sleepless nights, business blueprints, and relentless determination. Olivia proved to be a natural mother, but just as fierce in her pursuit of professional vengeance. While the twins napped, she worked. When they played, she took Zoom calls. And on the rare nights when they slept through, she stayed up until dawn mapping strategy. Phoenix Ventures was born at 3 a.m. in a Marina Bay apartment, Olivia feeding Ethan while bouncing Evan on her knee. The name wasn't a coincidence. A phoenix rises from the ashes, reborn, stronger. David fronted the initial investment, but Olivia insisted on retaining full control. This would be her company, her vision, her retribution. Within 6 months, Phoenix Ventures raised over $50 million from a coalition of Asian investors captivated by Olivia's laser-focused vision and brutal clarity. The business model was both simple and sharp. Target startups in AI, blockchain, and biotech. Not just with capital, but with strategic guidance, global infrastructure, and battle-tested leadership. With her Harvard MBA and years alongside Noah, Olivia had insights most investors couldn't dream of. But Phoenix wasn't just a firm. It was a weapon, and Olivia was aiming it right at Noah Carter's empire. Her first major strike? Poaching Dr. Lisa Chen, StoneTech's head of AI research, along with her entire division. The loss cost Noah tens of millions in contracts and crippled StoneTech's tech advantage almost overnight. "How did you know she was open to leaving?" David asked after the deal closed. "I didn't just know she was unhappy," Olivia replied, her smile razor-sharp. "I knew Noah had been stealing her innovations, taking credit for her work. Dr. Chen developed the algorithms that made StoneTech famous, but he kept her in the shadows." She paused. "I offered her the one thing Noah never did, respect." As Phoenix Ventures surged, so did Olivia's influence. She adopted the name Olivia Park, borrowing David's last name to maintain her anonymity as her profile rose. The tech world buzzed about the mysterious woman investor with an uncanny instinct for spotting the next big thing. Behind the scenes, Olivia was also gathering intel on her enemies. What she discovered about Vanessa Lane was damning. The pregnancy? A complete fabrication. Fake medical reports, custom prosthetic bellies, even forged sonograms. It was an elaborate con, and Olivia had the evidence. Olivia's private investigator had captured hours of footage. Vanessa drinking at high-end parties, stumbling out of clubs and bragging to her inner circle. "I just need to keep the act up until after the wedding," Vanessa slurred to a friend one night, unaware she was being recorded. "Once I'm legally married to Noah, I'll fake a miscarriage, divorce him, and walk away with everything." But Vanessa's timeline didn't account for one thing. StoneTech was collapsing faster than anyone expected. The company had lost major government contracts, and the stock had plummeted by over 60%. Federal agencies were now circling with subpoenas in hand. Noah's frantic attempts to maintain his illusion of power had left StoneTech drowning in debt and scandal. That's when Olivia made her move. Through a web of carefully placed intermediaries, Phoenix Ventures leaked a rumor. A cash-rich Asian investment firm was quietly buying distressed American tech companies. The bait was too tempting to resist. "Noah's taken it," David reported during a strategy call. His legal team reached out to open investment discussions. Olivia stood at the window of her Singapore penthouse office, the city lights reflecting off the glass behind her. Her face, once pale and bruised, was now composed, radiant, and sharp with focus. She was no longer the woman who fled Los Angeles with nothing. Phoenix Ventures now managed over $5 billion in assets, offices in 6 countries, over 200 employees, and her twin sons, now 18 months old, were thriving, raised in comfort by trusted professionals while their mother built a global empire. "Set the meeting," Olivia said quietly. "It's time to go home." David hesitated. "Are you sure you're ready? Once we step into that boardroom, there's no turning back." Olivia turned to him. In her eyes, he saw the same quiet fire that had brought her out of that alley. "This isn't just business anymore," she said. "This is destiny." 3 years ago, Olivia continued, voice firm, "Noah Carter left me bleeding in an alley. He chose a fraud over his pregnant wife. He tried to erase my existence and steal my son's future." She paused, letting the silence settle. "Now, I'll show him what happens when you bet against a woman who's already lost everything and has everything to gain." The Gulfstream G650 was fueled and waiting. Her return to New York, where her old life had ended, would be the beginning of something far greater. The Manhattan skyline shimmered beneath the clouds as the jet descended into Teterboro. The towers looked different now, but the fire they sparked inside her? That hadn't changed. She was no longer Olivia Carter, the discarded wife. She was Olivia Park, CEO of Phoenix Ventures, with $8 billion under management and a reputation feared across 3 continents. And she was just getting started. The twins, Ethan and Evan, were now walking, talking reflections of their mother. They had Noah's piercing eyes, but Olivia's fire was already there, etched in their expressions, in the way they observed everything around them with a quiet, startling intensity. For now, they remained safely in Singapore under the care of trusted nannies, blissfully unaware that their mother was about to dismantle the empire of the man who had abandoned them. Olivia's reflection stared back at her from the private jet's window. Gone was the soft, trusting face of a woman in love. What remained had been carved by betrayal and refined by power, her features sharper, more defined. The tailored designer suit, the sleek hair, The posture of someone who expected the world to move when she spoke. Every detail radiated control. But it was her eyes that revealed the true transformation. No longer innocent, no longer forgiving. Now they held razor-sharp calculation and restrained fury. "Final approach, Miss Park," the pilot called from the cockpit. "Welcome back to New York." "Welcome back," Olivia thought, her jaw tight. "Let's see if you remember me, Noah." The St. Regis had prepared its most luxurious penthouse for Phoenix Ventures' enigmatic CEO. As Olivia strode through the marble lobby, she noticed it. The subtle stir of recognition, the murmurs, the sidelong glances. Wealth had a way of turning heads. 3 years ago, she had walked these streets invisible. Now, she was the storm people sensed coming. David had arrived earlier and was waiting in the suite's private dining room, armed with fresh intel on StoneTech. "It's worse than we thought," he said, sliding over a report. Noah's panicking. The federal investigation into their data use has expanded. 3 major clients pulled out. The board is considering a hostile takeover unless he brings in an outside lifeline, and fast. Olivia's smile was ice. Perfect. Desperate men make reckless decisions. David hesitated. "There's more. About Vanessa." Olivia didn't flinch. "Tell me." "She's still milking the grieving mother act. Claimed a public miscarriage not long after your departure. Got tons of media sympathy. Noah married her 6 months later. The press called it a healing ceremony." Olivia's laugh was quick and dangerous, like broken glass. "Of course he did. Can't fake a pregnancy forever." She leaned back, eyes narrowing. "But that gives us leverage. He thinks the worst is behind him, that his secrets are buried." She turned toward the window, watching the Manhattan skyline shimmer in the distance. "He has no idea what's coming." The meeting was set for the next morning, inside StoneTech's headquarters. Olivia had been gone long enough that most of the original staff had turned over. Recognition wasn't likely. But as she prepped for war, one final detail pulled her focus. "What do you wear to face the man who tried to destroy you?" Olivia chose armor, disguised as elegance. A midnight blue Armani suit, tailored to perfection, costlier than most people's annual salary. Paired with Christian Louboutin heels that added 3 inches to her frame and made every step echo like a ticking clock counting down to judgment. Her makeup was precise but restrained. Her hair was pulled back, exposing the sharp lines of her jaw and the sharper intellect in her gaze, and on her left hand she wore her old wedding ring. Not out of nostalgia, but as a symbol, a reminder of what had been stolen. StoneTech's headquarters still loomed over Midtown, 60 floors of once prized Manhattan real estate. But Olivia spotted the decay instantly. Vacant suites with for lease signs, a skeleton security crew, and an air of anxiety clinging to every corridor. The $12 billion company was unraveling. Fast. On the 58th floor, in the executive boardroom, Noah Carter stood waiting, and Olivia felt a wave of cold satisfaction. He was only 38, but stress had aged him into someone 10 years older. His hair grayed at the temples, his face carved with lines of exhaustion. The swagger he once wielded like a weapon was gone, replaced with nervous calculation. Desperate, she thought. David entered first, every inch the unshakable billionaire. "Thank you for meeting with us on short notice," he said smoothly. "Allow me to introduce the founder and CEO of Phoenix Ventures, Miss Olivia Park." She stepped into the room like a queen reclaiming her throne. For a full 30 seconds, she let him stare. Let him not recognize her. Let him try to place the elegance, the composure, the controlled power radiating from the woman before him. "Mr. Carter," Olivia said, her voice cool and tinged with a subtle international accent acquired during her global ascent. "I've heard so much about StoneTech. A storied company indeed." Noah stepped forward, offering a businessman's smile and an outstretched hand. "The pleasure is mine, Miss Park. Phoenix Ventures has built quite a name for itself in the investment world." For 20 minutes, she played the role of a high-level investor flawlessly, asking about markets, poking at portfolio weaknesses, maintaining a cordial but dominant tone. But she saw the moment it hit him. It started with her hands, his eyes locked on the wedding ring still glinting under the conference room lights. The ring. The same one he'd placed on her finger in a very different lifetime. Then came the voice. Sophisticated now, layered with global polish, but beneath it a trace remained. A trace of the woman he once held. The woman he disc. Finally, it was the eyes. The same dark, Intelligent eyes that once looked at him with warmth and devotion, now glinting with something colder, harder. Something that made Noah Carter's blood run cold. Olivia, he breathed the name like a prayer, or a curse. She removed her designer sunglasses slowly, deliberately, letting him see her fully for the first time. "Hello, Noah," she said, her tone icy. "Miss me?" The blood drained from Noah's face so quickly, Olivia almost wondered if he'd faint. He stumbled back into his chair, hands trembling. You're alive. You're here. How?" His voice cracked like a frightened boy's. "Oh, I'm very much alive," Olivia replied. Her smile could have froze molten steel. "Though I imagine that's not the outcome you were hoping for." David sat silently nearby, watching the exchange like a chess grandmaster observing the final move. He was ready to step in, but Olivia had spent 3 years engineering this exact moment. Every glance, every word, every silence, it was all weaponized. "The children," Noah whispered, eyes darting. "Our children, are they?" "Our children?" Olivia cut him off, her voice soft but lethal. "Since when do you care about our children, Noah? Was it when you stood at the edge of that alley and watched me, 7 months pregnant, get beaten? Or was it when you turned your back as I lay bleeding on the pavement?" Noah flinched, hard. "Olivia, please, let me explain." "Explain?" She laughed, brittle and sharp like shattered crystal. "Explain how you left your pregnant wife for dead, how you married your pregnant mistress." Oh wait, her smile vanished. She was never pregnant. "It's never pregnant, was she?" The confusion on his face was almost pitiful. "What are you talking about?" Olivia opened her laptop and turned it toward him. One click, and the conference room filled with the sound of betrayal. It was Vanessa, clearly intoxicated, laughing in a VIP booth at an elite Manhattan bar. "Noah's such a moron," her voice slurred through the speakers. "I was never pregnant. Fake belly, fake ultrasound, forged medical records. I just needed to get that pathetic wife out of the picture and lock in my seat at the table." She clinked glasses with someone off camera. Men are so easy to control when you feed their egos. The footage continued. Now Vanessa was draped across Marcus Webb, Noah's biggest rival in the tech world. Their body language left no doubts. "I told Marcus," Vanessa cooed, "once Stone Tech crashes, he can swoop in and buy up the pieces for cheap. I'll divorce Noah, take half of what's left, and Marcus and I will rebuild it all, together." The room went dead silent. Noah stared, transfixed in horror. This can't be real." "Oh, it's real," Olivia said coolly, snapping the laptop shut with finality. "Your beloved wife has been playing you from the beginning," Olivia said, her voice calm and merciless. "The pregnancy was fake, the miscarriage was performance art, and your entire marriage a setup to destroy you." Noah shook his head slowly, like a man trying to rewind time. "But she lost the baby," he murmured. "She was devastated. We grieved together." "You grieved alone," Olivia corrected, her tone colder than steel. She was probably popping champagne. The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. Olivia could see the denial crumbling in Noah's eyes, see the exact moment when his illusion fractured. He looked older, smaller, like a man watching his entire life collapse under the weight of truth. She watched the man before her, watched as the final pieces fell away. The once dominant billionaire was now just a broken figure hunched under the weight of his own arrogance. "Olivia?" Noah's voice cracked. "I'm so sorry, if I could take it back." "But you can't." Her words were a blade. "You made your choice, Noah. You chose Vanessa's lies over my love. You chose to protect your image instead of your family. You chose to walk away while I bled in a dirty alley." He closed his eyes, shattered. "Where are they?" he whispered. "Our boys, Ethan and Evan. Are they safe?" "They're thriving," Olivia said, her expression softening for only a moment. "Brilliant, beautiful boys. They speak 3 languages. They're being raised to be compassionate, fearless leaders, men who would never turn their backs on family." There was pride in her voice now, the kind that came from sleepless nights and sacrifices no one had seen, the kind born from building something unbreakable from nothing. He swallowed hard. Could I see them?" The softness vanished. "You forfeited that right the moment you left me to die." Noah flinched. That truth landed like a punch to the gut, and for once he didn't try to deny it. He just sat there, hollow, as the consequences of his betrayal closed in like walls. What followed next was nothing short of strategic annihilation. Olivia laid out Stone Tech's finances with clinical precision, Missed payments, terminated contracts, federal probes. All of it. You have two choices, she said evenly. Option 1. Phoenix Ventures acquires 75% of StoneTech for $500 million. That will cover your debt and leave you with a small minority stake. I'll rebuild it into something worthwhile. Noah blinked, a flicker of hope. And option 2? Phoenix walks away. Within 6 months, StoneTech goes bankrupt. You lose the company, the building, your penthouse, your name. You'll be lucky to land a job managing a Radio Shack in Newark. He didn't speak, didn't breathe. She was offering him salvation or sentencing him to oblivion, and both options came at a cost he could barely fathom. His mouth went dry. And if I agree, what would my role be? Her smile was like a loaded gun. You'd be Chief Operations Officer. Salary $200,000 a year. The number wasn't small to most, but to Noah it was humiliation. A man who once wielded billions would now answer to the woman he discarded. You want me to work for you? I want you to feel what it's like to be powerless, Olivia replied, each word precise. I want you to wake up every day and report to someone who controls your fate. I want you to sit in meetings and watch what real leadership looks like. I want you to feel, for the rest of your life, what you threw away. Noah's hands trembled as David slid the contract across the polished table. Olivia, please, he whispered. There has to be another way. There is no other way, Olivia said, her voice calm, final. She stood, her Louboutins clicking sharply against the marble like a countdown clock. You have 24 hours to decide, Noah. Choose wisely. It's the last real choice you'll ever get to make. And with that, she turned and walked toward the exit. Behind her, Noah's voice broke through the silence. What happened to you? You used to be kind, forgiving. Olivia paused at the threshold, her back still to him. That woman died in an alley, she said without emotion. You killed her, Noah. What you're looking at now is what rose from her ashes. The next 24 hours passed like a silent death watch. Olivia remained in her penthouse suite at the St. Regis, taking calls from media across the globe. Somehow, word of the StoneTech takeover had leaked, and now the business world buzzed with speculation. Everyone wanted to know more about Phoenix Ventures' elusive CEO and what she had to do with Noah Carter. At precisely 3 p.m. the next day, Noah's attorney called. The deal was accepted. The signing ceremony was scheduled for the following week. Just enough time for Olivia to orchestrate the perfect moment of retribution. She selected the location with surgical intent. The same executive boardroom where Noah had once coldly downsized dozens of employees, where he had toasted victories with billionaires, where he had ruled like a king. It would now be the place where his reign officially ended. And hers began. On the day of the signing, Olivia entered like a conquering general. The media swarmed. Finance reporters, tech journalists, even celebrity tabloids drawn by the scandalous drama of betrayal and revenge. She wore white, not for innocence, but for rebirth, for power reclaimed. Noah looked like a man attending his own funeral. The stress had taken its toll, his skin sallow, his suit loose, his eyes hollow. There were murmurs throughout the crowd about his condition. Vanessa was nowhere to be found. She had vanished the moment the acquisition hit headlines. Olivia stepped forward, chin high, presence electric. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, voice resonating through the room. Today marks a new chapter for StoneTech Corporation. Under Phoenix Ventures, this company will return to its roots, innovation, integrity, and global expansion across Asia and Europe. A reporter called out, Mrs. Park. What's your connection to Mr. Carter? A reporter asked boldly. There are rumors that you two have a history. Olivia's smile was calm and unreadable. Noah and I go way back, she said smoothly. You could say he taught me everything I know about business and about life. When it came time to sign the official documents, Olivia ensured the cameras captured every second. Noah's hand trembled visibly as he scribbled his signature, signing away his life's work to the woman he once discarded. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone in the room. The fallen king surrendering his crown to the queen he had betrayed. Mr. Carter will remain with StoneTech as Chief Operations Officer, Olivia announced, her tone clipped and precise. I'm confident he'll bring the same level of commitment to this new role that he brought to his marriage. A ripple of gasps and muffled laughter spread through the crowd. Noah's face turned crimson as the cameras captured his disgrace for tomorrow's headlines. Photos that would run globally, framing him not as the visionary tech mogul, but as the man who lost everything. As the media dispersed, Noah approached Olivia one last time. "Olivia," he said quietly, voice cracking. "I know I don't deserve it. But please, let me see my sons. Let me try to be their father." Olivia looked at him for a long moment. What she saw was no longer the man who once ruled boardrooms and her heart. What stood before her now was a broken shadow, a man hollowed out by his own choices. "Fatherhood isn't about biology, Noah," she said gently but firmly. "It's about being present, showing up when it matters. You had your chance. You chose Vanessa instead. I'll do anything," he begged. "I'll work under you for the rest of my life. Sign whatever you want. Just, please. They're my children too." Her voice softened, but her stance didn't waver. "They have everything they need. Love, security, opportunity, everything you were willing to throw away for an illusion." She paused. "Maybe someday when they're older, they'll choose to know the man who shares their DNA. But that'll be their choice, Noah, not yours." And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving him alone in the same conference room that had once been his throne. Now, it was his prison. The phoenix had risen from the ashes, and the man who created those ashes was left to sift through the wreckage of his own making. 6 months later, Olivia Park stood on the balcony of her new Manhattan penthouse, not the one she had once shared with Noah. This one was grander, perched atop a skyscraper she now owned. Below her, the city pulsed and shimmered like a living thing, a conquered empire glittering with surrender. Stone Tech, under Phoenix Ventures, leadership had returned to profitability, leaner, smarter, reborn. So had she. Her sons Ethan and Evan toddled in the background, their laughter a melody she never tired of hearing. David was inside, working late but never too far. Olivia took a sip of wine, eyes fixed on the skyline. She had lost everything once. Now, she had everything she needed, and she had earned every piece of it. Leadership hadn't just survived, it had soared. Olivia's vision to expand aggressively into Asian markets had proven visionary. Within just 6 months, StoneTech's valuation had tripled under Phoenix Ventures' guidance. Analysts across the industry were calling it the greatest corporate turnaround of the decade. But tonight, Olivia Park wasn't thinking about valuations or quarterly earnings. She was thinking about a video call. "Mama," 3-year-old Ethan squealed earlier that day, his face lighting up the screen. Evan counted to 50 in Mandarin. Ethan added proudly, nudging his twin as Evan grinned with shy accomplishment. Watching them from her penthouse in Manhattan, Olivia felt a fulfillment no boardroom victory could ever offer. Her sons were thriving in Singapore, healthy, safe, and surrounded by love. To them, she wasn't a legend or a CEO. She was simply Mom, the woman who called every day, who flew home twice a month to read them bedtime stories in person. And that was all that mattered. David had relocated to New York to oversee Phoenix's American expansion. And somewhere along the way, their partnership had deepened into something far more personal. 3 weeks ago, during a quiet dinner at their favorite restaurant in Tribeca, he'd pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a 10-carat diamond ring, so brilliant it made her first wedding ring seem laughably small. "Olivia," he had said, his voice full of emotion, "you've shown me what real strength looks like. You've taught me love isn't about control, it's about respect. About standing beside someone, not above them. Will you marry me?" And for the first time in years, Olivia cried. Tears not of pain, but of joy. She said yes, not because she needed him, but because he had seen her at her lowest and never looked away. Their wedding was set for spring in Bali, a small, intimate ceremony with close friends and family. Ethan and Evan would be their ring bearers. Olivia's sister would fly in from California to stand by her side as maid of honor. It would be everything her first wedding pretended to be. Real, joyful, built on truth and mutual respect. But even in this happiness, the shadows of her past lingered. Noah Carter remained in her orbit, still chief operations officer, still showing up every day, a ghost among the living. Their interactions were brief, professional, stripped of anything personal. But the daily reports told a different story. He was unraveling. Living alone now, in a cramped apartment in Queens, the very borough where Olivia had once scraped by. The symmetry wasn't lost on her. Vanessa had filed for divorce the moment news of the Phoenix acquisition broke. Per their prenup, she walked away with half of Noah's remaining personal assets, what little was left. According to Olivia's private security detail, yes, she now required personal protection. Noah had tried reaching her through every possible channel. Letters sent to Phoenix Ventures offices, voicemails left with her assistant, even a misguided attempt to approach her during a charity gala, which ended with him being quietly escorted out by security. Each message echoed the same desperate plea. He wanted to see his sons, to somehow atone for the choices that had shattered their family. Olivia had ignored them all. Until tonight. Tonight, alone in her penthouse office, she held his most recent letter. It was different. There was no begging, no manipulative phrasing, no theatrics. Just honesty. Olivia, I'm writing this knowing you may never read it. And that's okay. These weren't for forgiveness. I don't deserve that. They're for truth. I destroyed something beautiful. I chose fleeting pleasure over lasting love. I chose lies over truth, cowardice over courage, and cruelty over kindness. I made those choices, no one else. I accept the consequences. I've stopped asking to see Ethan and Evan, not because I don't want to, but because I finally understand they don't need me. They have you, and that's more than enough. You gave them the kind of safety, love, and stability I stripped away. You became the fortress they never had to question. Working for you this past year has been the most humbling experience of my life. Watching you lead, seeing how people look to you, respect you, how your vision has rebuilt this company into something better than I ever imagined. It's made me realize exactly what I lost. You've become everything I pretended to be, a leader, a protector, a person of integrity. The industry doesn't just respect you, Olivia. They revere you, and they're right to. I won't contact you again. This is the last time. I think about that night in the alley every day. I would trade places with that broken woman on the pavement if it meant undoing what I did. You deserved someone who would fight the world for you. Instead, you got me. I hope David knows how lucky he is. I hope your sons grow to be half as strong as their mother. And I hope, maybe someday, the work I do at Phoenix Ventures will help balance the scale, even a little. Congratulations on your engagement. Noah Olivia read the letter in silence, her hands unmoving, her heart steady. She didn't cry, not because she wasn't moved, but because her tears had long since run dry. She folded the letter and placed it in a drawer, not out of sentimentality, but because it marked the end. The end of Noah Carter in her life, the final page of a chapter she had rewritten in her own power. Above her, the Manhattan skyline pulsed like a living testament to rebirth, and below, her empire waited. You deserve every happiness. Noah P.S. I'm including something that belongs to you. Olivia set the letter aside, her fingers brushing the edge of the small velvet box that had arrived with it. Inside, nestled against black satin, was her original engagement ring, the 3-carat diamond Noah had given her in another lifetime. She had left it behind during her exile, too heartbroken to care about symbols of love gone cold. Now she held it up to the light. For a moment, the diamond shimmered, catching memories she had long since filed away. The young woman who had once accepted this ring believed in forever. In promises, in fairy tales. She had stood on a rooftop, full of hope, thinking love could conquer all. That woman no longer existed, and Olivia no longer mourned her. What remained was stronger, smarter, someone who could not only survive the storm but rebuild in its wake. She walked towards her safe and placed the ring inside. Not as a keepsake, but as a monument, a reminder of how far she had come, from naivete to sovereignty. 3 weeks later, Olivia received a report from her head of security that would quietly close the last page of her history with Noah Carter. He had submitted his resignation from Phoenix Ventures, effective immediately. No drama, no theatrics, just a short typed note. It's time. My presence no longer serves the company, or her, Noah Carter. Her first reaction was relief. For over a year, his presence had been a constant ghost in the corridors of her empire, a living reminder of betrayal and loss. With him gone, there were no more shadows, but as she reread his letter, she felt something unexpected. Not sympathy, not forgiveness, just a quiet satisfaction. Not because he was leaving, but because at last he had left with dignity. No excuses, no blame, no emotional sabotage, just a man finally learning the meaning of accountability. Her sources confirmed he had taken a job with a mid-sized tech firm in Seattle, earning a fraction of what he once did. No headlines, no parties, no socialite clinging to his arm, just a quiet apartment and a daily grind. She didn't ask for more details. She didn't need to. Noah Carter had finally become what he was always meant to be, a stranger with whom she once shared a life, but who now had no claim on her heart, her time, or her future. 3 months before her wedding to David, Olivia did something unexpected, even to herself. She launched a charitable foundation, the Olivia Park Foundation, dedicated to helping women escape domestic abuse and financial entrapment. But this wasn't just another philanthropic vanity project. The foundation offered shelter, legal counsel, and, most importantly, entrepreneurial training and startup capital for women determined to build their own empires from scratch. At the press launch, a journalist asked, "Why this cause?" Olivia rested her hand on the glittering diamond ring David had given her, her eyes fierce and calm. "Because I know what it's like," she said, "to lose everything and rebuild from nothing. I know what it feels like to be discarded, to be dismissed," Olivia said, her voice steady before a sea of cameras and supporters. "But I also know that with the right support, any woman can rise from whatever ashes she's been left in." The crowd listened in silence, many moved to tears. The Olivia Park Foundation's first major project was ambitious, a full-service residential facility in Manhattan designed to give women a second chance at life. It would offer trauma-informed counseling, job training, and, at Olivia's firm insistence, a state-of-the-art daycare center. Because she knew firsthand what it meant to be a mother, fighting not just for survival, but for her children's future. At the groundbreaking ceremony, Olivia stood tall in a crisp white suit, her hand resting over her heart as applause rippled through the air. She glanced back once, not to the cameras, but to the memory of a younger version of herself, pregnant, terrified, working long hours in a Queens coffee shop. That woman would never have imagined this, but that woman had laid the foundation. "The phoenix," Olivia told the crowd, "is more than a symbol of rebirth. It's a reminder. Sometimes," she said, her voice growing stronger, "destruction is necessary for true transformation. The fire that burns away our old lives can forge us into something stronger, something better than we ever imagined possible." As the crowd erupted in applause, Olivia's eyes caught on a familiar figure in the distance. Noah. He stood quietly at the back, no cameras, no entourage, no attempts to approach, just watching. Their eyes met across the crowd, and for the first time she saw something in his expression she'd never seen before. Pride. Not bitterness, not regret, just quiet, genuine pride in who she had become. He nodded once, a small gesture of respect, then slipped away, disappearing into the crowd. She never saw him again. On a perfect spring morning in Bali, Olivia Park married David Park. Frangipani blossoms danced on the breeze. The sound of waves played like music. The ceremony was intimate, joyful, and real. A celebration not just of love, but of resilience. Ethan and Evan, now 4 and full of energy, walked the aisle in miniature tuxedos, carrying rings that symbolized not just the bond between their mother and her partner, but the foundation of a new family, one built on love, not convenience. When David slipped the band onto Olivia's finger, she felt more than gold. She felt peace. She thought about the long journey, every heartbreak, every betrayal, every night spent crying alone. And she understood now, all of it had been necessary to bring her here, to this moment, to this love. "I love you," David whispered as their lips met. "I love your strength, your compassion, your incredible mind, and the amazing children you've raised." Olivia smiled, tears gathering in the corners of her eyes. "I love you too." Olivia replied, meaning it with every fiber of her being. "Thank you for showing me what real partnership looks like." Their honeymoon took place in the Maldives, where, for the first time in years, Olivia allowed herself to fully relax. She swam with her sons in crystalline waters, built sandcastles that the ocean carried away at dusk, and fell asleep each night in the arms of a man who loved her not for what she could do, but for who she truly was. On their final evening, as the twins slept soundly in the adjoining villa, Olivia and David sat on a private beach, watching the sun dip below the horizon in streaks of gold and crimson. "Any regrets?" David asked, his arm wrapped around her shoulders. Olivia paused, considering the question carefully. "About us? Never. About the journey? Not anymore. She smiled softly, the waves gently lapping at the shore. Everything that happened, even the worst parts, led me here. To you. To this life. To the woman I've become. She turned to face him, her eyes reflecting the glow of the dying light. I used to think my story was about revenge. But now, I know it was always about redemption. Not just for me, but for every woman who's ever been told she can't rise again. 5 years later, Phoenix Ventures had become a global titan, valued at over $50 billion, with offices spanning every continent and a portfolio of industry-shaping innovations. The Olivia Park Foundation had transformed more than 10,000 lives, offering sanctuary, education, and the tools to rebuild. Olivia's memoir, Rising from Ashes, A Journey from Betrayal to Triumph, became a global bestseller, translated into 22 languages and taught in universities as a testament to resilience and transformation. Ethan and Evan, now 9, thrived at their international school in Singapore. They spoke 4 languages, excelled in academics and sports, and had never once asked about their biological father. To them, David was simply Papa, the man who read bedtime stories, showed up to every school performance, and taught them that love shows up every single day. Olivia's influence stretched across industries, but her greatest pride lay in her sons. Confident, kind, whole. Everything she had once dreamed for them, during long nights in Queens, was now their reality. One quiet Sunday evening, the family shared dinner on the terrace of their Marina Bay penthouse. Ethan, ever curious, looked up from his homework. "Mama," he asked, "my teacher says everyone has a story about overcoming challenges. What's your story?" Olivia and David exchanged a glance. He nodded. She had always planned to tell them when the time was right. Maybe 9 was old enough for a simpler version. "Well," Olivia said, pulling Evan into her lap and wrapping her other arm around Ethan. "Once upon a time, Mama was married to someone who didn't know how to love properly." The boys listened, eyes wide, as the stars blinked to life above them. "But that pain made Mama strong," she continued. "It taught me how to protect the people I love, how to rebuild when everything falls apart, and how to create something beautiful from something broken." "Like a phoenix," Evan said softly. Olivia smiled. "Exactly like a phoenix." "When you were growing in my tummy, some really sad things happened," Olivia explained gently, her arms wrapped around Evan. "And we had to start everything over from nothing." "Were you scared?" Evan asked, his eyes round and serious. "Terrified," Olivia admitted. "But you know what I learned? Being scared doesn't mean you can't be brave. Sometimes losing everything is how you find out just how strong you really are." "Did the mean person ever say sorry?" Ethan asked, curling up beside her. Olivia paused, considering how to answer that truthfully, but in a way they could understand. "He tried to. He tried. Years later. But by then, we had already built this beautiful life together, and his apology couldn't undo the past. Sometimes the best thing someone can do is just leave you alone so you can be happy." "Are you happy now, Mama?" Evan whispered, snuggling closer. Olivia felt her throat tighten, emotions swelling unexpectedly. She brushed a kiss against Evan's forehead and looked at both boys, their sleepy eyes, the innocence on their faces, the warmth of their tiny bodies curled against her. It wasn't just happiness. It was a sense of wholeness she had never imagined she'd feel again. Olivia looked around at the life they had built, her brilliant, kind-hearted husband who had shown her what real love looked like, her sons who filled her world with laughter and light, the legacy she was creating every day through her work and her heart. "Happier than I ever imagined possible," she said. And she meant every word. Later that night, after the boys were asleep and David was reviewing reports in his study, Olivia stepped out onto the balcony of their Singapore penthouse. The skyline shimmered around her like a sea of grounded stars. Ships moved silently through the harbor, headed toward faraway destinations filled with promise. Somewhere out there, Noah Stone was living his own life. Hopefully, he had learned something. Hopefully, he had found some kind of peace. Olivia realized, as she stood there in the warm night breeze, that she felt nothing. No hatred, no revenge, no satisfaction, no sorrow, just freedom. It wasn't indifference. It was evolution. A quiet liberation that came not from forgetting the past, but from rising so far beyond it that it no longer had power over her. The pain, the betrayal, the nights of sobbing into silence, they had forged something unshakable within her. The woman who had once defined herself by the man who betrayed her. The woman who had measured her worth by his affection and crumbled under the weight of his rejection, she no longer existed. In her place stood someone transformed. A mother who would never abandon her children. A wife who had chosen a partner who honored her spirit. A leader who used her power not to destroy, but to elevate others. Olivia Park had not just survived the fire, she had become it. She stepped back inside, drawn to the soft laughter of her sons and the warm glow of her husband waiting up for her. As she passed through the doorway, she whispered a silent thank you to the universe. Not for the pain, but for the strength it revealed. For the unexpected blessings forged in fire. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. It always did. But tonight, she was simply Olivia Park, beloved wife, devoted mother, and living proof that the most beautiful stories don't start with once upon a time and end with happily ever after. The best ones begin with, everything fell apart, and end with, and then she rose. So the story is over. Our wonderful friends, are you still here at this hour? If you are, then maybe something about Olivia's journey spoke to your heart. Maybe you saw yourself in her pain, her strength, or her healing. Maybe you're carrying something too, a heartbreak, a betrayal, a moment when everything fell apart, and maybe, just maybe, you're beginning to believe that it doesn't have to end there. You see, Olivia's story wasn't just about revenge or justice. It was about reclaiming identity, about rising from ashes not as a victim, but as a force of transformation. It was about learning to protect peace more fiercely than we ever protected love. As Rumi once said, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." And sometimes, the very things that break us shape us into who we were meant to become. Life doesn't always give us the apologies we deserve. It doesn't always give us closure. But what it can give us is the power to choose who we want to be next. Olivia chose strength, she chose purpose, and she chose love. Not just romantic love, but self-love, maternal love, love that builds, shelters, and empowers. So if you're here right now, still listening, it means your heart is strong. It means you're ready, or close to being ready, to write your own next chapter. One built not on what was lost, but on what is still possible. If this story moved you, if it made you feel less alone, then I hope you'll like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe for more stories that speak to the quiet battles and quiet victories of life. We're here for each other, and remember, the best stories don't always start with once upon a time. They begin when everything falls apart. And the most powerful endings? They begin with, and then she rose.